Looks like 4 total.
Awesome. Sounds like the right number. All right. Give me just 1 second to get my agenda up and we'll get started here in about a minute. All right. Thanks everyone for your patience. This is Chair Riley. The February 24th, 2022 meeting of the Zoning Committee of the St. Paul Planning Commission will now come to order. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. For the record, the chair of the Planning Commission has previously determined that it is not practical or prudent for the Planning Commission and its committees to meet in person pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 13D.02. Considering the COVID-19 health pandemic, it is not feasible for any member of the zoning committee to be present at our regular location. Committee members attending this meeting are doing so by telephone or other electronic means. It is also not feasible for members of the public to attend the meeting at its regular location due to the health pandemic and emergency. Arrangements have been made so that applicants and members of the public may also attend this meeting by telephone or other electronic means. Accordingly, no meeting is being held in City Hall Council Chambers at 15 West Kellogg Boulevard at this time. Again, this public hearing is being conducted remotely due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This meeting is also being recorded. Even though this hearing is being conducted remotely, the committee's public hearing rules and procedures still apply as if the committee were meeting in its usual place. These rules and procedures are as follows. The zoning committee's recommendations and findings must have a rational basis based upon the St. Paul Zoning Code and applicable state and federal laws. The zoning committee's actions today are recommendations. They are not final decisions. The committee's recommendations are forwarded to the Planning Commission for final action. The committee's recommendations will be considered by the full Planning Commission at its regular meeting held 1 week from Friday. The Planning Commission's meeting is open to the public, but it is not a public hearing. The decisions of the Planning Commission on conditional use permits, non-conforming use permits, site plans, variances, and other zoning permits are final decisions unless appealed to the City Council. The decisions of the Planning Commission on rezoning applications are only recommendations. By state law, the City Council, following a public hearing before it, makes the final decision on rezoning applications. The following rules and procedures govern today's public hearing of the Zoning Committee. The chair will call the secretary to take attendance by the committee. Committee members will need to respond verbally for the record. Following the roll call attendance, we will vote on the minutes of the previous meeting. Committee members, during the meeting, please mute your microphone except when recognized by the chair to speak. Discussion is intended for committee members and staff only, except during public hearing items when the chair invites individuals to speak. Staff will be monitoring microphones and muting committee members and members of the public as needed. Use the chat function only to indicate that you have a question or comment. The chat function is part of the official meeting recording. Type Q or question into the chat feature when you have a question and or C or comment if you have a comment. The chair and staff will monitor the chat function so that the chair may recognize committee members and staff in an orderly way. After being recognized by the chair, committee members should state their name before speaking. This helps others in the meeting and assists with the official recording. When chair calls the committee to vote on agenda items, the secretary will be asked to do a roll call. Committee members must respond verbally for the record and vote either yes or no. I have a visitor, sorry. With the chair, cases will be called in the order they appear on the agenda, and the chair reserves the right to limit the length of testimony if deemed necessary. I'll ask the recording secretary to now conduct a roll call of the committee members that are present for this meeting. Each committee member should acknowledge their presence by saying here. Ms. Langer, will you please take the roll call?
Commissioner DeJoy, Commissioner Grill, Commissioner Grill, Commissioner Hood,
Here.
Commissioner Rangel Morales, Commissioner Riley,
Here.
Commissioner Said,
Here.
Commissioner Tagia,
Here.
4 in attendance, and I show Commissioner Grill. Oh, she's logging back in.
Thank you, Chair again. So our first item on the agenda is the approval of the February 10, 2022 Zoning Committee minutes.
This is Commissioner Syed. I'll move to approve minutes.
Commissioner Hood, I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioners Hood, Said and Hood. Is there any discussion on the minutes? And I guess none. And Ms. Langer, if you could take the vote, please.
Commissioner Grill,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Tagia,
Yes.
Commissioner Said,
Yes.
and Chair Riley.
Yes.
5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Ms. Langer. And then the next thing on our agenda is announcements for the site plan review committee meeting, which will be on Tuesday, March 1st. There'll be 2 projects to review at that meeting. One is a snack shop market at 879 Fremont Avenue, which is building reconstruction, and Herb's Restaurant and Market at 779 Raymond Avenue, which is building addition and site improvements. And that site plan review committee meetings will be held via Microsoft Teams. You can contact DSI staff to participate if you so desire. And now we have our new business, the first item. And so I'll read the rest of the instructions for everybody, and then we'll move on to the first item. So here's that information. If you're a member of the public that would like to speak during a specific item's public hearing, you will be asked to identify yourself at the appropriate time. The public shall not utilize the chat for communicating public testimony, as it is not considered part of the public record. After I read the item number and title, staff will give an oral report on the item, and then I will open the floor for committee members to ask questions of staff. After that, I will open the public hearing on the item. All testimony and questions will be addressed to the chair. You may speak in favor or in opposition, and you will be limited to no more than 2 minutes. People who exceed the time limit may have their microphones muted by staff. I will first ask for testimony from those in favor and then from those in opposition. You must provide your name and address for the public record. Please mute yourself during this meeting, except during your 2 minutes when you are specifically called upon to speak. You are allowed to speak only once, with the exception of the applicant, who will be allowed an opportunity to respond to the testimony and answer committee questions. I will now proceed to the first case. Our first case is number 22-026-981, which is rezoning of 597 East 7th Street from I-1 Light Industrial to T2 Traditional Neighborhood, which is at the northeast corner of 7th Street East and Payne Avenue. And Mr. Dermody, I believe, is here to present that item to us.
Yes, thank you, Chair Riley. Glad to present this item to you. Folks may know this site as the State Supply site. Like to just give you a little overview here. It's where the dot is here at the northeast corner of Payne and 7th Street. This is the zoning map in front of us, and you can see it's zoned I-1, as is all the light purple. And to the north of it was just recently, last year, rezoned T2. That's 520 Payne, Johnny Opara's apartment project. You may recall that. The request here is to change the zoning of this site from I-1 light industrial to T2 traditional neighborhood, which would match the zoning immediately to the north. A little more context here. There's Sweet Hollow Park to the east. Payne Avenue is a mixed-use corridor, commercial and residential found up and down the street. There is a fire station immediately west across Payne, Minnesota Music Cafe, and an auto body shop right across the street as well. I'd like to give you a visual of the building as well, in case that rings any bells. So the 520 Payne is this vacant lot, and State Supply is towards the intersection there. This is how they access via the old Woodward, which is now private, was vacated. That you access the site from here. They have a parking lot along the west side of the building, and there is no direct access to 7th Street, so you go in and out via this parking lot, and then back out the same way. It does have a truck dock here, legacy of the old State Supply business. So the comprehensive plan designates the intersection here, 7th Street and Payne Avenue, as a neighborhood node, which calls for a higher intensity. And it, unlike some other places that are zoned industrially in the city, the comprehensive plan does not call for this particular area to be preserved for industrial uses in the future. So with that neighborhood node designation and no call for preserving industrial here, the staff recommendation is for approval on the rezoning to T2, which better implements the comprehensive plan, I would say. When the packet went out, we had not received any testimony, but we have since. We have a letter that was just distributed to you, I think, a couple days ago from the Payne-Phelan Community Council. They recommend denial of the application. And their concerns is, I encourage you to read the letter. It's a few pages and they have a lot of concerns laid out, but I think they mainly fall into two categories. One is they have concerns with the design of the building itself and its ability to accommodate the intended use of a daycare. And also they have concerns about how transportation will function, whether it's people walking to and from the site or vehicles going in and out, with this daycare use having heavy peaks in the morning and in the afternoon, and potentially shuttle buses going in and out throughout the day to take kids, whether it's to schools or to outdoor play spaces or whatever the case may be. So I think we have the applicant here to respond to that, but that is the recommendation of the district council is for denial. Again, the staff recommendation is for approval. I think I would note that these site plan concerns are not really rezoning concerns. In our analysis, the T2 zoning classification is still appropriate here. It allows a broad range of uses. A daycare is one of them. Perhaps a complicator in this situation to just be aware of is that it is unlikely that the daycare will require site plan review. And so there is no outlet for comments on their plans if they don't have that site plan review. What we've seen so far is 100% interior changes, and the building walls aren't moving, the parking lot isn't changing, and typically that situation would not trigger a site plan review. And so these comments that we have received from the district council are coming in through this rezoning, but there really isn't a place for them if this project proceeds as we think it is going to. But again, the staff recommendation is for approval. I'd be glad to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Derby. This is Chair Riley again. Commissioner Tagioff, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So, Mr. Dermody, in this case, am I right in saying that if rezoned to T2, the T2 district design standards would apply to this development?
That is correct, Chair Commissioner Tagioff. The T2 design standards would apply. However, the the existing building is legal nonconforming, and when you have a legal nonconforming building, it may remain in place even if the use changes. Any exterior modifications, as long as they are moving in the direction of conformity, are allowed by our code. You know, for instance, they could add windows, which would bring it more in line with traditional neighborhood district standards. However, they are not required to move the building so that it is up against Payne Avenue, which would be required. You know, it would have to be closer with parking on the other side behind if it were built from scratch. But with an existing building, they are legally non-conforming and they do not have to meet that modern requirement.
Okay, so by my understanding, just to clarify, because they're not touching the shell of the building, they wouldn't be required to do anything that, you know, they can continue to non-conform basically with those standards.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Dermody, and thank you, Mr. Tagia, for your question. Commissioner Grill.
Yep, this is Commissioner Grill. I was struggling with this over the last 2 minutes because I think, like most of you, I read the packet, I read the letter, and I was looking at the T2 zoning, sort of working through my assumption that it would be appropriate for T2 zoning, and that the issues raised through the letter that would be addressed in the site plan review. So, sort of trying to re-rack now that we know that it's not eligible or appropriate for a site plan review process. I'm wondering from staff, for some of those issues raised within the letter, are there reasonable conditions or things that staff might think are reasonable to include at this point? Or, like, I feel like Mr. Warner is want to say that the zoning isn't dependent on the project, so we don't want to mix those things here. I'm just trying to sort of figure out what avenues we have available to us to do what's being recommended in the letter, while also, you know, following the letter of the law here.
Chair, Commissioner Grill, rezonings cannot have conditions attached to them, and so that is not, it is not an option for you to put conditions on any recommendation. You can only recommend approval or denial. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Dermody. Did that answer your question sufficiently, Commissioner Grill?
It did. Thanks.
Okay. And I
And
will.
Chair, I'm just going to jump in. My
Yep,
hand
go
is
ahead,
up,
Mr.
but
Warner.
I don't
I
think
think you're going to
anybody's seen
say
it.
the same thing.
Oh,
Nope, I
let
see
me-
it. I think you're probably going to say what I said, but what
Yeah,
I was going to have. So go ahead.
Yeah, I just reiterate what Mr. Dermody said.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Yeah, so just want to remind the members of the committee that we are here to talk about the rezoning and not the project as a whole. Given that, does anybody have any other additional questions for staff? If not, we'll turn to the applicant. All right, seeing none, is the applicant here?
Commissioners, Chair Riley, my name is John Anderson. I'm a principal architect with JDA Design Architects. Address 901 4th Street North in Hopkins, Minnesota.
Great, thank you, Mr. Anderson. Do you have anything you'd like to, oh, the other phone number looks like your client. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Am I okay to now?
Yes,
Hello?
go ahead.
Okay, great. So my client purchased the building about a year ago, and we've been working with her to get this project through. I'd like to state that the project is still very much in its infancy, schematic design-wise. So the meeting with the neighborhood group a couple of nights ago, they brought up a lot of things, not a lot, but several, as Bill Dermody stated, some safety concerns and some site planning concerns. But I don't know that they really realized how preliminary and schematic project is. And again, as to reiterate what Bill had said, was that this is really a rezoning hearing. It's not about a use issue. We'd love to work with the neighborhood to ease their concerns a little bit. We certainly want to make the building better than it is today. It's quite a blighted property as it sits vacant now. As he stated, the property directly to the north was recently rezoned to T2, and we think that T2 for this property is also appropriate. And that's really all that I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. Is the applicant or your client here as well?
I'm on a phone line, audio only, so I can't see who's in the room. Her name is Keith Abdi. Keith, are you here? I sent her the link. She didn't get the link, and I sent her the link about 2 hours ago.
Okay, no,
So
that's no problem.
if,
I just have another phone number, and I wasn't sure if the phone number was Miss Abdi or not. So thank you for your information, Mr. Anderson. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? If not, I'll open the public hearing. And start with those in favor. If there is anyone here to speak in favor for this application for the rezoning of 597 East 7th Street from I-1 to T2, I'll take your comments now. Please state your name and address for the record. And I will ask 3 times. Anyone here to speak in favor of this application? And one last time, anyone here to speak in favor of the application for the rezoning of 597 East 7th Street from I-1 light industrial to T2 traditional neighborhood? Okay. Seeing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? Anyone here to speak in opposition of the application for 597 East 7th Street being rezoned from I-1 light industrial to T2 traditional neighborhood? One more time. Anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? All right. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And does anybody else on the committee have any questions, or anybody would like to make a motion so we can move forward? Commissioner Said.
This is Commissioner Said. I would like to motion to move for staff recommendation for approval.
Great. Thank you very much, Commissioner Said. Commissioner Grill, did you have a question?
No, I'll second the motion.
Great. Thank you for your second. The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? We all have our questions answered. Nothing to discuss. All right. Ms. Langer, will you take the roll call?
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Said,
Yes.
Commissioner Tagiev,
Yes.
Commissioner Grill,
Yes.
and Chair Riley.
Yes.
5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Langer. Thank you, Mr. Anderson, for being here. Thank you, Mr. Dermody. And this will be heard by the full Plan Commission 1 week from tomorrow, and subsequently we'll head off to the City Council at a later date. Next on our agenda is the reestablishment of a non-conforming use at 847 Hudson Road, which is a reestablishment of auto sales. The case number is 22-026-942. And this is Mr. Dermody as well.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to provide a little background on the application here. So the subject site, 847 Hudson, is at this interesting triangular parcel, a smallish parcel, immediately north of I-94. Hudson Road is essentially a frontage road. It is two-way, but it's essentially a frontage road for I-94 and partly how it functions. Bates and Plum come in and intersect right next to it. The entire area is zoned RT1. This is an aerial photograph. I will note that this intersection is likely to change in the next couple of years. It won't impact the property. All of the curb cuts are anticipated to be put back where they are currently. The building won't be touched, but the Gold Line bus rapid transit is coming through here, and Bates and Plum will form an L intersection, and then but they will not connect to Hudson. There will be a median type of situation. The sidewalk will come all the way across. There will be some grass or some other low maintenance landscaping north of that. And so this intersection will change. And then immediately south of that, sidewalk and curb will be Hudson Road. And to the south, up against the noise wall, is where bus rapid transit will be. So that will change things a little bit in this area. I'd also like to show you, before I get into the recommendation here, I'd like to show you the application materials, specifically the site plan that is proposed here. So on the south for this is Hudson Road, and there are 3 curb cuts today. They're proposing closing off the western one near parking spaces 1 and 2, and so the traffic would go, from Hudson. They show it as one way, and then out to Plum. I'd like to actually show one other picture here, which is just a street view, and this will, if you've ever been by here, this will look very familiar to you. This old gas station, originally built as a gas station many decades ago, nearly a century ago. It's been vacant since about 2001 or so. You can see this blue car is driving down Hudson Road. You can see the noise wall here, a tree in the boulevard out front, and this interesting intersection behind it. So the request is for a reestablishment of non-conforming use to allow outdoor auto sales. According to the site plan specifically, they're looking at doing 5 vehicles on the site. In staff's analysis of this, going through the findings, we find that most of the findings are met, and that includes, sorry, here, gathering my notes. That includes that the structure and use and land in combination cannot reasonably or economically be used for a conforming purpose. That finding does appear to be met. It's been vacant for quite some time, so there's proof of that right there for multiple decades. It's a difficult site to fill under the RT1 zoning. We also believe that the finding about the proposed use being equally appropriate or more appropriate than the previous legal nonconforming use is met. That does appear to be true. We also feel that the required finding that the use not be detrimental to the existing character of development in the immediate area, or endanger public health, safety, or general welfare, that can be met as well. If you are inclined to recommend approval of this, we would suggest a condition of removal of at least one curb cut, which conveniently is proposed in the application materials. So that appears like that finding can be met as well. The troublesome finding from the staff recommendation point of view is that the use needs to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan includes all of its addendum plans, and one of those is the Gold Line Station area plans that were adopted in 2015. Those plans called for a pedestrian orientation in any new development or redevelopment in the station areas, and that includes this. In our analysis, auto sales uses are not by nature pedestrian-oriented uses, as evidenced by the fact that they're not permitted in any of the T districts, the traditional neighborhood districts that were designed specifically for pedestrian orientation near transit. So based on that finding not being met, the staff recommendation is for denial of this application. We have not heard from the district council on this. We did hear from a neighbor, I think just one neighbor, who is in opposition to the application. One other thing I wanted to mention was the approval history of this, which is a bit unique. The site was approved for auto repair in 2014, and then the Gold Line Station area plans were passed in 2015, and that 2014 approval expired in 2016. That same applicant, which is not today's applicant, applied for something slightly different. Instead of auto repair, they in 2017 applied for auto sales, which is the same use we're talking about today. And staff had recommended denial at that time for the same reasons, essentially, as we are recommending denial today. And the Planning Commission approved it, went against the staff recommendations. I just wanted to emphasize that history. It was an interesting history for that site. The 2017 approval has since expired. It expires after 2 years. Planning administrator can potentially extend those by 1 year, but that did not happen. So this, in any case, 3 years would have passed as well. So a new application had to be made. The property changed hands over the last few years. The current applicant is now making an application for essentially the same thing, auto sales, outdoor auto sales, with a very similar site plan to what was approved by the Planning Commission in 2017. Although, as I mentioned, the staff recommendation is for denial of the application. I'd be glad to take any questions that you have.
Thank you. Excuse me, this is Chair Riley. Thank you, Mr. Dermody. Are there any questions for Mr. Dermody from the committee members? Commissioner Tagioff, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly on the third criteria, in terms of detriment to neighborhood character, it does seem that this is an auto sales location adjacent to what is primarily residential. Was that a consideration that you kind of assessed and thought about in terms of the character point?
Yes, good question. That is a difficult one to you could see it going either way. However, with the scale of this being only 5 vehicles proposed, it was our opinion that this is not going to be a significant negative impact on the surroundings. There's no auto repair, there's no auto paint booth or anything like that. It's simply auto sales and only 5 vehicles. So in our analysis, the impact is pretty minor in this situation.
Got it. That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tagioff and Mr. Dermody. Are there any other questions for staff? If not, the applicant is here. Would you like to add anything to the report? Looks like you're muted. Sorry.
Okay. Hello. My name's Carrie Motarjami, and thank you for the opportunity to talk. I put a lot of thought and consideration into this, so thank you again. I'm happy to be here, as it's always been a dream of mine and my father since I was a kid to start an auto business. My father wanted to be here, but he couldn't make it. So the reason I purchased this building, other than the fact that I fell in love with its charm, was that it was already approved for auto sales. It was and still is a vacant building, so I started working on zoning and finding contractors. I had everything approved and finalized with zoning, the contractors hired, and I found out after all the approvals and the paperwork was in for the auto sales that because a permit hadn't been pulled, I had to start all over. It was extremely heartbreaking, as I thought I had everything in, but today I'm here because I know for a fact I'm able and ready to complete the process. Per the report, I met all of the requirements except for number 4. However, this committee has already seen the value of this building and lot being used for auto sales as it was most recently approved for it. The finding also calls for reuse and not demolition. The building and lot, as you can see with what Bill Dermody had, was a small gas station or repair shop. It has a large garage, bathroom, and small storage area, and it's perfectly designed for auto. It was also recently approved by this committee as an auto sales business, so to me, that would qualify as a reuse. I also believe it could help with the pedestrian use and walkability requirement, as the majority of people in the Twin Cities need a car. And if someone doesn't have one, using the Gold Line to come to the business would be highly beneficial. Furthermore, I'd like to add to the surrounding community by offering affordable, well-inspected and maintained cars without all the high markup that large auto dealerships have. In closing, I'm asking you to reapprove the non-conditional use that was already recently approved by the committee. The building has been and continues to be vacant, and I would love nothing more than to return it to its original charm and start my business of auto sales. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Motarjami. Do you have can you tell us your address, your street address for the record?
Yeah, it's 6354 Willow Lane, Brooklyn Center, Minnesota.
Great, thank you very much. Does anyone on the committee have any questions for the applicant? No, great. Thank you. You'll have an opportunity to respond to testimony if there is any, so sit tight. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Anyone here to speak in favor of the application to reestablish the non-conforming use permit for 847 Hudson Road for auto sales? Anyone here to speak in favor of the application? All right, seeing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? Anyone here to speak in opposition of the application for a non-conforming use reestablishment at 847 Hudson Road for auto sales? Okay, one last time, anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? All right, seeing no public testimony, Mr. Motarjami, do you have anything you want to say, or are you good?
No, I guess the only thing that, no, I think I said everything I need.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. We'll close the public hearing. And is there anyone on the committee who would like to make a motion, or do you have any questions for staff or the applicant? All right. Motion from any members of the committee? So let's see. Before us, we have a staff recommendation for denial, primarily based on looks like finding 4, and potentially finding 3. And reminder that if we are going to propose a motion opposite staff recommendation, we have to say why. Commissioner Grill.
Sorry, I was a little late on the draw. I have a question that may ultimately relate to number 4. Mr. Dermody, how long do we have until the gold line is operational?
The goal opening date for Gold Line is 2027. I think at this point. No, wait. I work on Rush Line too. Sorry. 2025. It could be open in 2025, and construction is anticipated to begin in the later part of this year.
Thank you, Commissioner Grill. Thank you, Mr. Dermody. Anybody else have any questions for staff? Questions for each other?
I see someone's hands raised, Commissioner Riley.
Commissioner Grill, go ahead. Sorry, and Commissioner Hood. I see.
No, go for it, Commissioner Hood.
All right, thank you, Chair Riley. You know, I'm right now still working for a rationale. I think that we should approve this. It makes all the sense in the world. Would anybody be opposed to delaying this for 2 weeks so we can come up with a good rationale right now to get this thing approved and to deny the staff report? Because to me, this makes all the sense in the world. I don't think that there's really any good rationale for us to stop this from happening. So again, I don't have a great legal rationale right now. Certainly, I think that we could work with staff to get some alternative language. But I would prefer to just lay this over for 2 weeks, get something that's real solid, get a real slam dunk reason, get this thing approved, and let's go from there. So that's my recommendation. And if anybody has any further discussion, be happy to have that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hood. This is Chair Riley. Commissioner Tagioff, go ahead.
Just to note that I'm in agreement with Commissioner Hood. I'm somewhat doubtful that the reasons for denial, the pedestrian orientation. I mean, to Staff's point, this is a very, very small lot, very, very minor impact either way on pedestrian orientation for the area generally. There are other potential considerations in the comprehensive plan around, preservation of existing structures and not sort of essentially demolishing something to permit a different use. So I'm confident we could find suitable language, and I'd be in favor of Commissioner Hood's suggestion.
Thank you, Commissioner Tagioff. I actually have a thought of how we could get something accomplished today, but I'll defer to Mr. Warner first.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Well, Chair, I'd prefer that you not defer. In order to go to Commissioner Hood's point, if you're looking for a legal reason to do this, the legal reason has to be factual and on the record. So I would start now establishing those factual reasons. And if it turns out that you need additional time to think that through, that'd be great.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Warner. And it looks like Mr. Dermody has put up almost essentially what I was going to suggest, which was that we strike all of 4 beyond however, or from however beyond to the end of that sentence, and say the finding is met because this building will be reused and one might consider it neighborhood scale. So I don't know if this is big enough for everyone to see, Mr. Dermody. So if there's a way for us to see this a little bit bigger, and then please go ahead. Thank you. And Mr. Warner, is your hand just still up from before?
Sorry.
I didn't. No, it's okay. I just want to make sure I didn't step in it and that. So thank you. Go ahead, Phil.
All right, I will try to zoom in on this. I apologize for not. Mr. Torstenson specifically suggested I include the approval from 2017 in the packet, and I forgot to do that. But this is the revised finding 4 based on that 2017 approval. This was the logic Planning Commission used last time, that this is a reestablishment, it is not development or redevelopment. And so that that issue of pedestrian orientation doesn't apply, is what Planning Commission said at the time. And there were 7 conditions from Planning Commission last time, but one of them had to do with parking. But now that we don't have any minimum parking, it seems like that is not relevant. And these are the other conditions that essentially they mostly have to do with finding 3 about how this can be not a detriment to the surrounding neighborhood, and these would ensure that that's true. So if you are inclined to recommend approval on this, I might suggest this revised finding 4 and these conditions, or something close to that, and perhaps you'd be ready to do that today. And again, I apologize for not including something like this in the packet.
This is Chair Riley. Thank you, Mr. Dermody. Before Commissioner Grill, Mr. Warner, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would point out, though, that if the inclination is to move to approve, the fact that we no longer have parking requirements, while true, this is still a non-conforming use permit, and so including a parking restriction like that's set out as a potential condition number 4 would not be unreasonable, just in terms of the neighborhood impact.
Thank you, Mr. Warner, for that clarification. And sorry, Commissioner Grill, before I go to you, Mr. Dermody, did you want to add something?
No, sorry, Chair. I just need to put my hand down.
That's all right. Commissioner Grill, please go ahead.
Yes, this is Commissioner Grill. First, I want to thank Mr. Dermody because I've been trying to look for the previous previous committee's resolution and language, and I was about to ask about conditions, and I think you saved us a lot of trouble. I just wanted to sort of say, to add to the conversation, I'm in favor of what we have going on here. I do think the conditions would be helpful for us to sort of guard a little bit with the project. And I do think that the fact that the gold line isn't currently operational, will be a few years out. Some of those things do, I think, help us with rationale as well, while like that portion of the comp plan is still incredibly useful and valid. I think there are some wiggle rooms when the property already exists and the impending project has not yet been built. So I think if we're looking for additional sort of language for the rationale, I don't think it needs to be added to the written document, but I do think for the record, that's sort of where my thought process is. And that's all.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Grill. This is Chair Riley again, and thank you, Mr. Dermody, for the language for finding 4, and just a note that finding 3, just to make sure that we tie right. Finding 3 would be tied to the potential condition 6. Is that accurate, Mr. Dermody?
Chair, potentially conditions 3 and 4 as well, as they point to neighborhood impacts.
Great. Thank you very much. And this is one of those funny things about being around for a long time. This might have actually been my zoning case the last time it came to the Planning Commission and the Zoning Committee. So this is very helpful. And with this information from Mr. Dermody, Mr. Tagioff or Commissioners Tagioff and Hood, do you feel confident in potentially making a motion and moving forward rather than postponing for 2 weeks? Mr. Tagioff.
Yes, given that we have solid legal language in front of us, then why not go ahead right now?
Commissioner Hood, I second that.
All right. Can I have someone say that they formally move approval of the reestablishment of auto sales at 847 Hudson Road? Don't all jump at once. Commissioner Grill.
I'm going to ask a process question instead of actually making the motion.
Yeah.
Do we have to vote to deny the staff recommendation first, or can we do that all in one motion?
Oh, that's a very good question.
I would do it all in one motion. The staff recommendation is before you. You can merely move to not follow the staff recommendation, move to approve, direct staff to make whatever small changes to the staff report or findings they need to do, and then to adopt the conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Werner. This is Chair Riley. Commissioner Grill, do you want to try that?
Yes, I can take that. I'd like to move to deny the staff recommendation based on the reasons that we've outlined throughout the meeting. I'd like to direct staff to update the language in the staff report based on the conversation today. And I would like to attach the conditions seen here on the screen here, 1 through 6, to the recommendation coming out of the committee. And that is my motion.
Thank you very
Perfect.
much, Commissioner Grill. Perfect indeed. That we need a second.
Commissioner Hood, I'll second Commissioner Grill's motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Hood. And Ms. Langer, is there any discussion? I'm sorry. Is there any discussion? I saw Commissioner Tagiaff's hand briefly, perhaps hoping to second.
Just a second and congratulate Commissioner Grill on navigating that verbally.
Excellent. All right. Seeing no discussion, Ms. Langer, will you take the roll call, please?
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Said,
Yes.
Commissioner Tagiaff,
Yes.
Commissioner Grill,
Yes.
Commissioner Rangel Morales,
Yes.
and Chair Riley.
Yes.
6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Motard Jamie. And I'm really sorry if I keep messing that up.
No, that's perfect. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
And the Planning Commission will have their final vote a week from tomorrow. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And next up, we have item number 3, 22-024-976, which is a conditional use permit for a church at 800 Transfer Road, which is at the southeast corner of Ellis and Transfer Road in Ward 4, District Council 11. It's zoned I2, and Mr. Williams, I believe, is here to make a presentation. Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Chair Riley, Commissioners. I do apologize for my somewhat informal attire. I am coming to you live from my basement, which is very cold, hence the hat. So I do have a very quick presentation to share with you. And if you'll give me a moment, I will share my screen. Can folks see that? It should be
at the
like
moment. There we go. Yes, we can see that.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been having some internet issues. It's usually very reliable, so I apologize if that's a problem. So the application in question is for a conditional use permit to locate a church operated by Living Water Baptist Church at 800 Transfer Road. The image you see says 750. That property actually has multiple addresses, and that is the reason for that discrepancy. If folks are familiar with the area, Transfer Road runs north from University. University is just off the bottom of the screen, and then Transfer Road curves to the east and essentially becomes Pierce Butler Route. If people are looking for the location, and it is located just on the eastern edge of the West Midway, the excuse me, the Midway industrial area. So if you get a little farther east, you get into some of the neighborhoods of the Hamlin Midway neighborhood. And of course, I just want to show you the zoning here. Having some trouble. As noted in the, oh dear. Oh, here we go. Sorry about that. As noted in the staff report, it's located in an I2 district. Most of the Midway is I2. There's some IT and I1 as well. So I will leave this up here for now. I can be very brief with this. You have my staff report. You have a copy of the application. The staff recommendation is for approval. All findings were met. I did want to touch on two of the findings briefly. The first is finding 2, which refers to the zoning code requirement that anyone making application for a conditional use permit have an interest in the property, a leasehold interest, so either ownership or an actual lease. In this case, after consultation with the city attorney's office, we determined that an oral agreement, which the applicant has indicated they have with the owner of the property and or their broker, is sufficient, but that finding does state that a submission of an actual signed lease within 6 months of approval of the conditional use permit should be it should be a condition of approval, and that is the staff's recommendation. Secondly, I just wanted to talk a little bit about finding 3A, which deals with it is the first of the 5 standards that apply to all conditional uses related to the comprehensive plan. You'll note that my staff report indicates that on balance, the finding is met. Our current comprehensive plan going out through the year 2040 talks quite a bit about the use of industrial areas for essentially job producing uses. In this case, there are also policies that call for being flexibility with zoning and land use decisions to respond to economic, social, and market conditions and opportunities. You combine that with the fact that the building where the church is proposed to be located is also already has a number of sort of office/service type use tenants, and obviously this type of use would be beneficial to the community. So my finding as staff was that on balance this is very much consistent with the comprehensive plan. So with that, you have my recommendation for approval with the condition that within 6 months of the approval of the conditional use permit that the applicant provide to the Department of Safety and Inspections a signed lease for the property. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee has. And I will stop sharing my screen at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. This is Chair Riley. Is there any member of the committee who have questions for Mr. Williams? All right, seeing no one from the committee looks like at least one person is here from the applicant. Is it Mr. Dip?
Yes, thank you, Chair Ali. This is Fred Dip, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Board of Directors of Living Water Baptist Church Organization. We are a small 501(c) nonprofit religious organization. We've been in existence for about 3 years, and our mission is just to serve God and fulfill our social obligations to the community that we live. So this is just a handful of families, mostly immigrant families, who find themselves in living in this part of the state around the metro area. So I'm sure you have all the information that is required that we've provided, and if there's any question that's directed at me or any of our members, I'll be more than welcome to answer the questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dip. Could you state your address for the record, please? I don't think I heard that.
The address is 16651 110th Avenue North in Dayton, Minnesota.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Does anyone on the committee have any questions for the applicant? Great. All right, seeing no questions, I'll open the public hearing. And if there's anyone here to speak in favor of this application, please go right ahead.
Can you get me?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Ephraim Ankiambom. I'm the pastor of this small group, and it's been 2 years since we've actually been in a social dilemma because it's really been difficult meeting because of the COVID actually, and that was really starting to take a toll on our families and our children. Before the COVID, we had already been meeting for a year, as Mr. Deep stated, and very often it really helps us as a group of Africans. We are people who like meeting. It really does a lot for us. I don't know about other cultures, but we really like meeting, and I think we will really love it, if we are given this opportunity to use that property, because it will not only help us to be able to meet our goals, but to be able to function within the premise of our own constitution as a church, which is being able to help those around us in our different communities and reach out even to some of the people who are struggling with some of the effects from, the isolation and many other things that our communities are going through. And the quicker we meet, the better, because it is really going to help us, our children, and help us to achieve our goals as stated in our constitution and in our documents that we did present to the realtor before we were applying for this property. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Pastor. Could you state your address for the record, please, as well?
My address is 5680 Hadley Avenue North, Oakdale.
Great. Oakdale, yep, great. Thank you very, very much. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Mr. Dressen?
Thank you, Jerry Dreesen,
Dreesen,
CBRE
sorry.
Commercial Real Estate, 3908 Lynn Avenue South, St. Louis Park. I'm the leasing agent on behalf of the landlord, 316 on the park. They've owned the property for, 20 plus years at least. And the landlord is supportive of this use. It's a small space. It's only about 1,500 square feet on the northwest corner of the building, and we're excited to keep this moving along. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dreesen. Anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? And I'll ask just one last time because I think everybody in my list has spoken. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application for Living Water Baptist Church at 800 Transfer Road? All right, is there anyone here to speak in opposition of the application? Anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? Opposition to this application? And last time, anyone here to speak in opposition to the application of Living Water Baptist Church for conditional use permit at 800 Transfer Road? Excellent. All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And is there anyone on the committee who would like to make a motion or has any final or last questions they'd like to ask? Commissioner Said.
Chair, this is Commissioner Sayed. I would like to make a motion to move staff recommendation.
Great. Thank you very much, Commissioner Said. Commissioner Grill.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Grill. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right. Seeing no discussion, speak now or forever hold your peace. I'm going to ask Ms. Langer to call the roll call. Go ahead, Sam.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Said,
Yes.
Commissioner Tagia,
I'd like to abstain.
Commissioner Grill,
Yes.
Commissioner Ringo Morales,
Yes.
and Chair Riley.
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 abstention.
Great. Thank you very much to Mr. Dipp and Pastor for being here. We will hear this again at the Planning Commission week from tomorrow, which will make the final decision. And with that, our business is concluded unless there's anything else that has come up. And we are adjourned. My favorite Robert's rules: get all your business done, go home.
Thank
Take
you,
care,
Chair,
everybody.
Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.